Yeah, welcome back to another episode of the Format Podcast. This is a live episode for breaking news, and that is Deandre Hopkins, Tennessee Titans wide receiver, will be headed to Kansas City to hook up with Patrick Mahomes with the Chiefs. And joining me today to discuss that, I have Fox Sports AFC South reporter Benjamin Arthur. Ben, what's good, man?
Nothing much, Bruce. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I appreciate you taking the time to join us this morning. So sit back, relax, y'all. We're going to talk about this. But before we get started, real quick, check this out. If you're here on YouTube and you haven't already, please make sure you go ahead, click that like, that subscribe, that notification bell. Make sure you're kept up to date whenever we drop new content on the channel. If you want the audio only version of the podcast, open up your audio podcast platform, hit the search bar, type in The Format Podcast, and we should come right up. If you're enjoying the content, make sure you give us that like, that 5-star review, and drop a comment. All that stuff helps us rise in the algorithm, helps us find more sports fans, helps more sports fans find us. And finally, make sure you write it down, put it in your phone, set an alarm, do whatever you got to do to remember. Saturday nights at 7 p.m. we are live here on the Format Podcast, and we'll give you the opportunity to call in, talk to us, get at me. I love it. I can't wait. All right, everybody. So as I mentioned, we have Benjamin Arthur, Fox Sports AFC South reporter, here to talk with us about the blockbuster trade. So last night we saw in the NBA, we saw history being made with LeBron James and his son Bronny being the first father and son duo to ever play on the same team together, or actually to ever play in the NBA at the same time, period. And they did that with the Los Angeles Lakers. I wake up this morning and the NFL says, hold my beer, it's still fall. And what they do is they go ahead and they make news there with a blockbuster trade. And that is Deandre Hopkins leaving the Tennessee Titans and heading to the Kansas City Chiefs. So Ben, tell me, man, what was the impetus behind this move? And tell us a little more of the details that you're aware of.
Yeah, so from the Titans' perspective, this isn't unexpected really at all. I mean, I expected a move like this. This is a team that has needed to kind of be quote unquote sellers at the trade deadline. The season is going nowhere. They're 1-5. They don't have a realistic chance at competing for the playoffs. I know that was the hope with all the moves they made this offseason, but this season isn't going anywhere. And Deandre Hopkins is one of the guys on this roster that had significant value. And so actually on another show, when I was talking to some folks in Buffalo ahead of the Titans Bills game, like they had talked about Hopkins, I mentioned him possibly going to the Chiefs, and that's the team he's going to be going to. And so, yeah, this isn't a surprising move for the Titans, getting a conditional 4th-round pick in return and start kind of looking to 2025 at this point. So that's kind of where this is at for the Titans, and I don't expect this to be the only player that they part ways with. I think there could be maybe at least one other guy who on the roster is going to be on another team. So.
Okay. So you said conditional 4th-round pick. What are the conditions and what could that become?
Yeah, I don't have the full details at this time. Just conditional 4th-round pick is kind of what it is at this time. The team itself hasn't even put out official confirmation yet. So I don't have very specific details at this point. But that's around the range I expected for considering the circumstances, and this is the last year of Hopkins' contract too. So this is kind of like a half-season rental, so to speak, and then you kind of go from there. And so, yeah.
So did Hopkins, did Deandre Hopkins want to be there, or was he more was he more along the lines of he would like to be moved in this latter part of his career?
You look at his comments in kind of recent days, he definitely knew it was a possibility, but he loved it in Tennessee. He's actually said multiple times how he's loved Nashville. It really reminds him of his home in South Carolina. It's kind of a bigger version of the town he's from.
Hmm.
loves the music scene. He's
Hmm.
I think it was I don't remember which country artist, but he kind of made an appearance at Nissan Stadium with this particular artist kind of coming out with him. So he's a big country music guy. He had
Hmm.
a good relationship with the Titans front office,
Okay.
with the owner, Miss Amy Adams Strunk, and also with Will Levis. I mean, I know he's had his issues this
That was
season,
the next question. Yeah.
but yeah, they had a really good relationship, and Hopkins
Hmm.
was a big advocate for him. So it's not like this relationship went sour. It's just kind
Hmm.
of circumstances, and this is business, and this is kind of a win for both sides. And considering the stage at Hopkins' career that this makes a
Right.
lot of sense for him to, not just for the Titans.
Right. You mentioned there is possibly another guy who could be on the block for a trade before the deadline. Are you speculating? Do you know? Can you say who that might be?
I can't say who exactly is going to be moved. I mean, I
Okay.
don't know for a fact. But based on my knowledge of the team, where they're at, and the value that a number of their players have, I mean, I wouldn't be. My point being is I wouldn't be surprised. I know some people has gone as far to say Jeffrey Simmons.
Mm,
I would
okay.
be totally shocked. Like I don't see it happening, to be very
Mm,
clear, but
okay.
I don't think even a move of that like that is completely out of the question. I look at what Quandre Diggs, a
Mm,
safety that they have. Yeah, they're yeah, I mean, those are kind of two guys right off the top of my head, but I don't have really a name to give you because I don't know for a fact who Rand Carthon is looking at moving
mm,
at this time. But just again, knowing the circumstances of this team and the value that some veterans on this team have to potential contenders, I wouldn't be surprised if DeAndre Hopkins isn't the only player that leaves this Titans team.
okay. And good stuff. Good stuff. Are you seeing the Titans attempting to do a full teardown and rebuild here, or are you seeing that they are just making some moves that they think could make them more competitive next season?
Yeah, well, they definitely need to reset. I mean, that's where
Mm.
we're barreling towards. I mean, this DeAndre
Reset or
Hopkins move.
rebuild?
Are you good?
No, no, that was my question. Reset or
Oh,
rebuild?
okay. No, I just heard something loud come
Oh,
out from
sorry.
your end. No, you're good. Yeah, I was just saying, like, this is kind of the start of this is the first official move of the Titans kind of waving the white flag, so to
Hmm.
speak. Of course, publicly they're not going to say they're giving up on the season, but this is kind of the
Hmm.
first move that indicates that. And yeah, there's going to be a lot of changes that starts at potentially quarterback. Um,
That was my next question.
yeah, Will Levis. I mean,
Yeah.
we can talk about Levis later, but yeah, I mean,
Mhm.
they could definitely potentially be looking at a quarterback at the top of the draft. They need a right tackle. They need a young edge rusher. They have a lot of needs. There are a lot of guys they just paid, like Calvin Ridley, Lloyd Cushenberry. I mean, there's some guys who are going to be there, so you can't
Mhm.
really say a complete rebuild because some of these guys they just paid, just acquired. But there is going to be turnover on this team for sure because this team is definitely underwhelmed based on just what the expectations were entering the
Mhm.
season with the guys they brought in to help Levis. So
Mhm.
yeah, expect there to be a lot of change in Nashville this offseason.
Got you. Got you. How so? Okay, from the Chiefs side, I know you don't cover the AFC West or cover the Chiefs, but what do you see from the Chiefs side that would have made them make this move, as opposed to maybe another guy who's out there? Maybe I know that um, the Rams said they would be willing to listen to offers for Cooper Kupp, and so there's other wide receivers out there. But what do you think immediately prompted the Chiefs to make this move and go out and get this guy, or is this something? Not necessarily with the Chiefs, but a DeAndre Hopkins deal that may have been in the works for a little bit that the Titans have been kind of waiting to accept whatever they deem would be the best offer on.
Yeah, I will. First of all, I wouldn't be surprised if this kind of has been in the works for some days, and that news just happened to come out today. I mean, I don't know the
Hmm.
intricate details of that at this
Hmm.
point, but from the Chiefs' perspective, it's kind of obvious. I mean, they need the wide receiver help. They lost Rashee Rice for the year. Marquise Hollywood Brown has
Hmm.
that
That's right.
shoulder injury.
Yep.
they've had several injuries at the wide receiver position, and once again this season it seems like the Chiefs need wide receiver help. I mean, this was the case last year, and they made a midseason trade for Hardman, bringing him back. The year before, it was Kadarius Toney, and actually both of those guys helped them win the Super Bowl. Right,
Right.
with Toney, what he did and that big punt return in the Eagles Super Bowl, and then last year with Hardman getting the game-winning catch in overtime against the 49ers. So obviously from their perspective, not only do you need the wide receiver help, but also he's a veteran guy, has done a lot in this league. He immediately slots in as one of their top two guys, probably on paper without knowing their exact situation, but he's a guy who can help them in the playoffs and give Patrick Mahomes another weapon that he's needed to have.
So he seems to be relatively healthy, right? Tennessee, Nashville it's a smaller media market. So I was just looking up his numbers and stuff this morning, and I was like, out of sight, out of mind is a very interesting thing, right? When you're playing on a team that's not particularly playing well, you're in a smaller media market, you can be great, but no one talks about you. Because I was looking at his numbers and I'm like, wait a minute, this guy is probably going to be a Hall of Famer when it's all said and done. I mean, he's a 5-time All-Pro, which generally gets you into the Hall of Fame. He's got 12,500 receiving yards. Like, everything is there. Obviously, he hasn't won a Super Bowl, but, when you're a receiver, that's not judged the same way as quarterbacks, right? So everything that he would probably need to be on that level of all-time is there. So you just wonder, like, what is it like? Why aren't people talking about him? We've forgotten how good he is, and I'm sure he'll get plenty of attention when he gets with Mahomes. But why aren't people talking about him? What have you seen? Is there anything you've seen that would explain that, other than maybe bad team, small media market?
Well, he's 32 first and foremost, and he hasn't necessarily been 100% healthy. He missed pretty much all of training camp with an MCL injury, and he was slowed to start the year with that knee injury. So it's not like he's been 100% healthy, and he's older. And even though he's still a good player when he's out there and engaged, he still is. He's not maybe the player he used to be, obviously, with the Texans or even the Cardinals. And so, I mean, that's why. And then you add on top of that, the things you just said about being on a bad team, a bad offense, a bad passing attack, a lower media market. I mean, you add all that to kind of a declining player, so to speak, and you get the situation you have. And then to your last point, I mean, that could totally change with the Chiefs, playing with Mahomes and being with Andy Reid in that offense, an offense that needs him. And so, I mean, the narrative could change really quickly, but I mean, why the lack of attention has been, why it's been the way it is, it's kind of right there, because of not only the team he's been on and the offense he's in, but also the injury and then his age as well.
Got you. While I got you here, tell me a little bit about Will Levis. What are you seeing from him? I think that a lot of people, not a lot, some in the mainstream football media were bullish on him and what he could be coming into this season. The Titans certainly attempted to give him quality weapons, and they've got one of the better O-line coaches of all time there on that staff to try and protect him. So what are you seeing with Will Levis? Why is he struggling? What does he need to be able to take the next step and become better? Because as you mentioned, they may go ahead and take a quarterback at the top of the draft, which says to me they're not sold on him being the guy.
Yeah, I think, well, first of all, I mean, kind of what has happened has been sort of a surprise to everyone based off of the promise he showed last year with frankly a staff that really didn't know how to develop a quarterback, and he was thrown in mid-season, and you're like, oh wow, he has promise here. And then you bring in, like you said, one of the best O-line coaches of all time. You have a play caller in a head coach who has a ton of experience with quarterbacks: Joe Burrow, Peyton Manning, Derek Carr, Matt Stafford, and they bring in Calvin Ridley. You support him, right? And for this to happen, it's kind of been a surprise for everyone involved. I think it kind of comes down to maybe Levis being in his head a little too much. I think that's one thing. I mean, the pressure I mean, people were touting. I mean, this was the year, right, where, okay, the Titans are going to figure out if he's the franchise guy or not. And I think
Mhm.
internally, even if he hasn't maybe totally admitted this publicly, I mean, there's a pressure that comes with that, right? They've created the perfect situation for you. This is your team. This is your team to lead. And I think just from a confidence standpoint, we've seen, starting from those first couple games where those turnovers and some
Mhm.
really bad turnovers were rampant. And then I think at that point, it maybe started getting into his head a little bit. We've seen the chatter on social media, not just like the national media, but social media, all the memes that are out there about him. A couple times we've heard just even like Brian Callahan, the coach, and Tyler Boyd, one of the receivers, uh, indicating about how that noise that's around him.
Mhm.
So I mean that's a very real thing, and I think so. So I think the confidence thing is one part of it, and uh, with pressing, like we've seen him not try to push the ball down the field as much as he was as a rookie. Like that was part of his thing, so to speak, right? That confidence, that pushing the ball down the field, but he's
Mhm.
really winded that down significantly. I mean, the last game he had a shoulder injury, and so
Mhm.
he wasn't really pushing the ball down the field in that game for obvious reasons, but overall, he's been more safe. He's been playing safer. He's been going with the higher
Mhm.
completion throws, which has actually been sort of an emphasis, but I think that's kind of come at the expense of him maybe being himself and
Mhm.
really attacking like the deep third of the field like he was
Mhm.
as a rookie. So I think there are multiple things going into it to kind of sum up. I think it's the pressing part of it,
Mhm.
maybe the confidence getting rattled, and then trying to be maybe too safe to his detriment and not maybe leaning on what he's been good at. Why the Titans were so high on him going into this season. So yeah, it's a number of things, but at the end of the day, he's played only. I think it's important to look at the macro picture, and he's only played like 14 games or so. And so at this point, it's really easy to say, yeah, the Titans have given up on him, but
Mhm.
I don't believe that's totally the case yet. They're going to give him the full year um, to see if he can turn it around at the end of the year or have him play them into a top pick. So I think one of those two things is going to happen. So I think that's kind of the situation with Levis right now.
Okay. Real quick, you mentioned more of an emphasis on high percentage, high completion type passes and the shorter stuff versus pushing the ball downfield. But if I'm not mistaken, the Callahans, those are proponents of West Coast offensive scheme, right? And that's those short passes and high percentage things in the middle game. That's pretty much endemic to that West Coast system, correct?
Uh, yeah. I mean, general West Coast scheme principles. Yeah, like
Mhm.
definitely hitting the shorter to immediate throws, like getting
Right.
those short little chunks. And so yeah, that has been an emphasis. But at the same time, what I was trying to say earlier is like that's maybe come at the expense of
Hmm. Hmm.
what made Will Levis what he was as a rookie, and even at Kentucky, the flashes he shown was the ability or the confidence to really put a pressure on those safeties and whatnot. And even Will Levis has talked about, he's been asked like, why aren't you throwing it as deep as you were like as a rookie? And he said, like, I'd even argue that some of those throws I was doing as a rookie were a little reckless. I'm kind of paraphrasing what he said, but
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
his whole mind shift, his whole mindset towards the passing game has definitely changed with Brian Callahan and
Hmm.
being in year two. But at the same time, I do think that's been a strength for him. So I think you can have that emphasis on the short to intermediate passing game, but
Right.
still, maintain what's been a strength for you. But at this point, it's just like he's trying to fit himself into a box. That's kind of what it looks like, and he's not maybe going beyond that first read, so to speak.
Mhm.
And so I think that's kind of been an issue for sure.
Okay, and last question on DeAndre Hopkins before I let you get out of here. To your knowledge, is he still in Nashville, or has he gone out
I
to KC for the physicals and whatnot to kind of complete the deal?
Yeah, I don't have details on that for you,
Okay,
Bruce. This trade isn't official. Like it's still
right.
that's why you hear the language being finalized,
Yes.
expected to. So it's
Hmm.
not. So I imagine he's on his way to Kansas City to get that physical done, to make
Hmm.
that trade official, and then we'll see the official announcements. That's based off of my knowledge of how these things typically work. That's what I would
Hmm.
expect. Yeah.
There we go. Well, listen, thanks, Ben. I know you got a busy day ahead of you. I know you got a lot going on. I appreciate you taking the time out to join us this morning. Everybody, that's Benjamin Arthur, Fox Sports AFC South reporter. Before you leave, where can the people find you? Where can they read your work, Ben?
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me, Bruce.
Yes, sir.
At Ben Y Arthur on X, so BenYArthur on X. Also on Threads and Instagram as well. And I've actually expanded. I'm not only doing AFC South
Okay.
anymore. That's kind of my expertise, and I obviously cover the Titans as a beat reporter, but I cover the league at large for Fox now.
Nice.
So that's where people can find me. And then obviously on foxsports.com and the Fox Sports app, go to the personalities page, look up Ben Arthur, and you can find my work there as well.
Good stuff, man. Thank you, Ben. Look forward to hearing and more from you and reading more of your work, man. Have a great day.
Thank you, Bruce. Appreciate you.
All right, man. Talk later. All right, team. So as I mentioned, that was Ben Arthur from Fox Sports, NFL reporter. Always good to get with him and kind of get an idea of what's going on. Love the opportunity to kind of get with those insiders and just try to get the word from guys who are boots on ground, so to speak, with these things happening. So yeah, for those who missed it when I first started. Looks like a trade is being finalized, which would send DeAndre Hopkins from the Tennessee Titans to the Kansas City Chiefs. And that was a big one, honestly. Looking at this guy for years, he was one of the top wide receivers in the league, some of the best hands in the league, just one of the best overall. He's got, I want to say, 79 career touchdown receptions. Not quite Mike Evans. Mike Evans just hit 100 the other night, but 79 career touchdown receptions, 12,500 receiving yards. Just one of the better guys, right? And so five-time All-Pro. So this is a guy who, when he was healthy and when he was younger, could get it done. Now, as Ben mentioned, he is 32 years old at this point, and he has had a number of nagging injuries over recent seasons, but you can see when he's at his best, he's still one of the best. And again, his hands are amazing. You see the guy consistently making just incredible catches, especially in traffic. Strong hands, good hands, tremendous concentration, can run the route tree, can go deep. And this to me is interesting, right? Because I was talking to another buddy this morning that I talk sports with, and I'm thinking, what was kind of the impetus for this trade? And I'm thinking one of the biggest things is obviously Kansas City remains undefeated. I think at 6-0, and their defense is locked down. They're playing good football. Patrick Mahomes is making the key plays when he needs to, right? He's making the key plays when he needs to, but he doesn't look anything like the Patrick Mahomes earlier in his career that was generally and consistently going bombs away over the top. But then that's the mark of great players and great teams. They kind of morph into whatever they need to be and whatever the situation dictates they can be, right? So obviously the Chiefs are currently back-to-back defending champions, and then they are looking to do something that's never been done, and that's to three-peat in the NFL, 3 straight Super Bowls back-to-back-to-back. And so they're playing extremely well. If you watch this show, if you're familiar with it, myself and Transformer as well have just been basically we've been gushing to use, a term. We've been gushing over what Steve Spagnuolo is doing on the defensive side of the ball for the Chiefs, and they are outstanding. They are making every play. He's one of the best big game defensive play callers maybe we've ever seen. I wouldn't quite go as far as to say he's up there with Belichick just yet, but or maybe Dick LeBeau or one of these guys, but Spags is up there. He seems to always have the right game plan as a defensive coordinator in the big games, right? So anyway, Kansas City 6-0, but the offense is struggling. again, they make the plays they need to. Travis Kelce is looking, I guess a step slow might even be an understatement. He doesn't look like the Travis Kelce of the past in terms of really, being able to be explosive and to exploit the defenses the way he once could. However, he is the guy that Patrick Mahomes can almost always go to when he needs to convert a third down or when he needs to get something done. He's always looking for Mahomes. And I don't know how much of that is necessarily Kelce's greatness at this point, or if it's his rapport with Patrick Mahomes. Mahomes always knowing kind of where he's going to be, and those guys just working so well in concert. But now Pat Mahomes and the Chiefs bring in a guy like DeAndre Hopkins. Now, if he can stay healthy, that's a tremendous addition, right? And this is shout outs to Brett Veach, the GM of the Chiefs. This is a guy who does not rest on his laurels. He doesn't just sit. He's always making moves to try and improve that team, improve that roster so that they can continue to win, right? And so I'm looking at this and I'm saying, why do they make this move? Again, they're trying to improve. They're trying to three-peat. They're trying to continue to win. But also a big part of this for me is they've got to be seeing what Baltimore is doing. Baltimore right now is cutting through the league like a hot knife through butter. They are on fire. They are destroying people. And now, well, I shouldn't say destroying people, right? Because Baltimore's defense is allowing teams to get back in the game. But the way their offense is rolling, they look pretty much unstoppable on that side of the ball, right? Baltimore, as we know, number one run defense in the league, but they have a lot of trouble stopping the pass. And so also, Kansas City has to know that they got away with one on the opening Thursday night of the season. They have to know that if not for Isaiah Likely's toe being a little too big, right, that Baltimore gets out of there with a win in game one and they have a loss on their record. Now, don't get me wrong. I always say it. Every champion, every great team has an element of luck in terms of getting to where they want to ultimately get to. However, Baltimore was right with them blow for blow. For instance, even in the AFC Championship game last year in Baltimore, Kansas City did not score in the second half. Now, their defense played lights out, but realistically, if Todd Monken calls that game properly and Lamar Jackson makes just a couple more plays, we may be looking at the Ravens and Lamar Jackson as a Super Bowl champion this year, right? That may very well have happened, but it didn't. And, it's over. We've moved on. But again, Kansas City has to know that Baltimore is really, really gearing up. And they are out for blood. Lamar wants this thing bad. He's doing everything he can do to get it. The Ravens did what they needed to do in bringing in Derrick Henry. And again, that offense looks completely unstoppable. You can't run the football on the Ravens, but you can throw it on them. And so if Kansas City anticipates meeting up with Baltimore again in the playoffs, probably in the later stages of the playoffs, well, guess what? They're going to need to have a more impact and robust passing game, and bringing in a guy who likely is a future Hall of Famer like DeAndre Hopkins, providing he can stay healthy. Well, that's going to add an explosive element that the Chiefs have been lacking for some time now, right? So you have DeAndre Hopkins. Obviously, I mentioned you have Travis Kelce, who can make the plays when they're needed and has that long-time rapport with Pat Mahomes. You have the young speed guy, Xavier Worthy. I mean, this could be a difference maker. Now, again, I definitely believe like this move has been made specifically with Baltimore in mind in order to ameliorate the offense so that they can keep up with Baltimore if it comes down to that. Now, what I have here on the screen, just looking at DeAndre Hopkins, this is a guy, look at his numbers. I mean, he has been tremendous. Now, if we see in 2022, he only played 9 games. That kept his numbers down, obviously. And then he's played all 6 games here in 2024, but still not quite, the DeAndre Hopkins that we're used to seeing. So we're going to see how he can deal with it. As Ben Arthur said when we were interviewing him, he clearly has been nicked up and he's not the same guy. And to that point, he is 32 years old. So he's not going to get back to that guy that made 5 All-Pro teams in 6 years early on in his career in Houston. But he can definitely continue to be a quality guy, especially if he doesn't have to be an outright number one. But I love this move. I think it's very dangerous. I don't know whether or not the Chiefs are done making moves. That's the other thing. If Brett Veach has something more kind of in his back pocket that he's looking to do to continue to make this team better. But that's what the great teams do. They make these moves to make the teams better. So man, I was shocked, man. I woke up this morning thinking, okay, the Lakers made history last night. LeBron James and Bronny made history last night. Shout outs to the James family. Congrats to them. Again, if you know me, I still don't like the way that whole thing went down, but it was history. And hey, if they're happy, they didn't do anything illegal. They didn't do anything, technically to hurt anybody. So, shouts to them. And I'm sure they're waking up and having a great breakfast this morning before heading out to practice. But then the NFL does what the NFL does. And, now we get this breaking news that one of the better receivers of all time is going to join a guy who's clearly one of the best quarterbacks of all time. So very interesting. Looking forward to see what happens. Not sure how that's going to go. Clearly dependent on DeAndre Hopkins' health. I think that is the biggest thing there. That is the biggest thing, clearly dependent on the health. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to keep it short right there. Don't have a whole lot to add. I'm going to put the phone number in the chat, and then I'm going to open up the phone lines in case anyone has anything to say regarding this deal, wants to call in. That's 904-219-8264, 904-219-8264. You can go ahead, call in, and you can give me your thoughts on this trade, kind of what you think sparked it and really pushed them being the Chiefs to make this deal. How much effect you think this may have on the Chiefs going forward? Maybe does this affect the AFC? Does this affect, possible Super Bowl contention? Do you think this pushes Kansas City over the top? I'd love to hear from you. So 904-219-8264, 904-219-8264. Give me a call. Let's get it. Brandon Bryce, saw a comment from you, says Chiefs did reach out to inquire about Cooper Kupp. Okay, that's good to know. I think I also read yesterday somewhere, I wasn't quite sure, that maybe the Rams are looking for a second-round pick for Cooper Kupp, or maybe a second-round pick and more. So maybe that was too rich for the Chiefs' blood, which is why they kind of took a quote-unquote step down and went to the Titans and DeAndre Hopkins, because they got him for a conditional fourth. So that might have something to do with it. And I'm curious to see what other wide receivers could be on the move, and if Cooper Kupp ends up somewhere else. That could be interesting. All right. Well, looks like I'm probably not going to get any calls on this one. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to end it here. Thanks for those who tuned in. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe on the way out. Appreciate you, man. The NFL keeps giving us stuff, man. They keep giving us stuff. Make sure you tune in tonight. We're going to have our weekly NFL pick'ems, and we're going to have some other good topics for you. Transformer and G should be on with me. So looking forward to that. You know how we do it on Wednesdays. And yeah, I'm out. Peace.